Three, two, one. How you doing, everybody? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and have a really good show for you today. And I wanted to bring on somebody that can kind of go a little bit different than where we've normally been going. And one of the reasons why I want to kind of transition my broadcasting content to be not just about finance, but also be about wellness and also be about trying to make sure that you live your best life. And so to help us kind of get a better understanding of how we can do some of those things from a wellness and living your best life standpoint, I brought on Ferchaurd from the FitFashow Podcast. And what we're going to talk about is the secret to brain hacking your way to weight loss. And I'm really excited to have her on because she has a really extensive background in the fitness space. She's been working with a lot of different clients. They've had a lot of success. And I think she can give you a really good perspective because as people that are involved as entrepreneurs, involved as traders, what we often sometimes do is we neglect our wellness and we neglect our health to hit our financial goals. And a lot of times that can come back to bite us. So what she's going to kind of talk about is how we can incorporate some of those principles of wellness and weight loss to our overall goals to make sure that when we arrive at our financial success or financial goals, we're not so beaten down health-wise that we can enjoy it. So Amber, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. And of course, thanks for having me on the podcast today.
No problem. And everybody that's listening, kind of tell me what part of the country that you're coming out of, and also let us make sure that you can actually hear our audio. So Amber, we're going to go ahead and go directly into it because I really feel that you have a lot of really valuable information for our audience. I got a lot of respect for your perspective on things. I've followed you a long time on social media, and you've been very consistent with your perspective on wellness and fitness. And so let's kind of get right into the question. So what is your story? Like, how did you get involved in the wellness space?
Well, I think this podcast is a perfect place to be because my transition into wellness was actually purely financial. You know, I know a lot of people think about it. It's because of health. It's because of this. I got into wellness because I could not afford to be sick. And essentially what happened to me, I started having some health issues in probably early 30s, you know, issues that I shouldn't be having that early on in life. And I kept going to the doctor, kept trying to resolve it. It was not until the bill showed up that I said, you know what, I got to do something about this because, you know, you're talking about even after insurance, I was paying an exorbitant amount of money just to be well. And I decided at that point, you know, it's easier to just go to the gym and to do those things. And once I started to do that, I fell in love with, you know, the whole wellness experience. And then my motivations changed. But like I said, in the beginning, it was purely financial. I figured you're either going to pay the doctor or you're going to transition into this new lifestyle. So it's one or the other. So that's how I got here.
Okay. And so if you don't want to kind of get deep into it, were you kind of experiencing things that you thought were maybe lifestyle related or they were like a major illness? How did you kind of, what kind of illnesses or situations were you experiencing?
Yeah, happy to talk about it. It was sort of a combination of both. The first thing that hit me was that I ended up straining a muscle in my neck. The very first thing that when I went to physical therapy that they told me, they said, you have weak posture muscles because you sit at your desk all day long. You're not working out. And that makes you more susceptible to injury. And I'm going to tell you all right now, if you've ever pulled a muscle in your neck, it is the most painful thing you will ever go through. And so every time I went to the physical therapist, it was one charge after the other. I think they charged me $150 just to put hot stones on my back for 5 minutes. $150 versus $60 to go to like Massage Envy or something like that. So that was sort of the first thing that I encountered. After that, I started to have these increasing symptoms. Some doctors were calling it autoimmune issues. I went through a number of doctors just trying to figure that out. Everything from allergies to aches and pains to digestive issues and whatnot. And they just kept stacking on each other, one after the other after the other. So after going through a series of doctors, I eventually left traditional medicine, got a functional doctor. And that's when we started getting into like leaky gut and all of those, you know, types of things. So for me, it was a long process. It wasn't just like one day I decided to get into wellness. It's just that I kept having issue after issue. And my thoughts on wellness evolved over time because what I used to think was wellness is completely different today. You know, 5 or 6 years later, I have a different perspective on wellness and how I approach it versus back then.
Okay. And I know from kind of following your posts on social media that you have a background in sports.
Yes.
Do you think that impacted your perspective of wellness and how you should kind of approach it?
I definitely think it did because I thought I knew everything. You know, having been an athlete my entire life, I played soccer for about 20 years. I was a collegiate athlete. So when it was time to lose weight, I figured I know exactly what to do. I know what I'm doing. It's not that big of a deal. But the truth is that when I really got into my journey, I learned that I actually knew very little about wellness, or rather the things that I knew were things that we have in our society, things that were taught on TV, things that were taught in the traditional sense. And it wasn't until I really got into my journey that I realized the things you learned when you were an athlete are not helping you very much right now, other than for the mindset. The mindset part of being an athlete did help. But outside of that, when it came to eating the right things or how you should work out and so forth, I kind of found out that I didn't know a whole lot about what I should be doing. And that's something that I had to learn along the way.
Yeah, and from my experience, and I wasn't at a level as you would. I played JUCO ball, but one thing I experienced is that kind of how I was indoctrinated as an athlete growing up is that I should kind of like ignore any ailments and just try to push through it. And so what I found is that having that kind of mentality, especially as you get older, can be detrimental to you because you kind of never really deal with your problem. You just keep thinking that you can just keep pushing through it. And then over time, those things start to compound. And then you can have a situation where you can have a really, really bad injury because when you're coming up, you're always taught, well, your goal is to try to just figure out how you can perform as opposed to kind of deal with your injuries.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is that the body has so many built-in alarms
that
it's putting out there before you get to the point of being really sick. And like you said, often we ignore those little things. I always say we sort of, as we get older, that needle moves. And so what used to be normal right here, we then move that normal over here and we accept it, thinking that that's just a part of getting older, not realizing like, no, that is your body sending you a warning, telling you to pay attention. Like when you have allergies, but you've never had allergies at any other point of your life, you need to pay attention. Because developing them later on in life is a sign that something else is going on under the surface. But if you go to your traditional doctor, they're going to tell you, oh no, just go take a Zyrtec or an Allegra or whatever medication for it. But the truth is, it's like your body is trying to tell you something, and you need to pay attention to those things. So to your point, being an athlete, sometimes we want to push past those early warning signals, and then you end up in a situation where your body has moved so far to the left that it makes it twice as hard to get into a good place. So fix the easy stuff now so you don't have to fix the major things later.
Definitely. And so I want to ask you, what do you think are the 4 largest obstacles, kind of like 1 through 4, that can impede success in weight loss and in wellness?
Absolutely. So the first one we already briefly touched base on, and that is your mindset, how you come to the table. So the thing about it is when you think about mindset, for a lot of people, this is the first time you're coming into this area. It's the first time you've ever done something. You may not have the skills necessary just yet to get it done. And for others, you probably have tried millions of different diets. And what you've done is you've programmed your brain to believe that you cannot be successful because you failed at it before. So you actually have to go through a reprogramming, if you will, so that you can start and attack this new venture that you're going on. So mindset plays a very big part. Whatever you believe will harden into fact. If you believe you can't do it, guess what? You never will be able to do it. But if you believe in certain things, you'll be able to push past certain milestones. So mindset is a huge, huge piece. And certainly we can come back to that, talk a little bit more about that in a second. The second thing will be, I would say, definitely portion size. We live in a Western society where everything is big. I remember after I got into my wellness venture initially, I would cut back a little and I think I'm in a good place. And it wasn't until somebody said, no, this is the appropriate portion. And I looked at my plate and I thought to myself, well, this is like a third of the size of what I'm used to eating. If I go to a restaurant, they're going to bring me a plate that's this big. Even the child size plate is bigger than what it should be. So it's this misconception of what is appropriate meal sizes that most of us have to work through. Now, if we lived in a different country, it'd be different because I think other countries have a better idea of what appropriate meal sizes are. But here in America, we eat way, way, way too much. So that would be, I would say, like the second obstacle. The third obstacle would be this idea that you can outwork a bad diet. Your diet is 80% of what you do, you can't outwork that. And I've trained a number of clients who just think, oh, well, I didn't eat the right thing today. I'm just going to hit the gym and it'll be fine. And it's like, you can go to the gym all you want. You simply cannot outwork a bad diet. You can't go to McDonald's and then go to the gym and expect that you're going to get it off. You're simply not going to do that. And then I would say the fourth thing is that we're also a really big calorie counting society instead of a quality counting society. So what matters most is the effect that your food has on your hormones and not necessarily how many did you consume. Because look, you can eat 1,500 calories worth of French fries, or you can eat 1,500 calories worth of quality foods that are going to influence your hormones in such a positive way that you then lose weight, that you then have concentration, that you then have all of these amazing things happening to you. So actually, I probably should elevate that up the list. But that quality over quantity is something that we really need to work on versus calorie counting.
Okay, and I'm glad you went, and especially the how the food manages your hormones, and we're going to kind of get into that. So let's start with the first that we talked about, mindset. So let's say mindset is an obstacle for a person with their wellness and their particular fitness. What are some suggestions you can kind of give to somebody to overcome that mindset piece?
Absolutely. So the very first thing I always recommend is that you create actual reachable goals. If you're doing something you've never done before, you don't want to jump into it saying, I'm going to lose 200 pounds like in a month. That's very unrealistic. And what's going to end up happening is that when you aim for that really huge goal and you fail, you're going to program your mind to believe that it just can't be done. When in reality, you just created an impossible goal. So I always say it's better to take bite-sized steps than to shoot for the moon. And I know what people say, hey, if you shoot at the moon, at least if you land here, you made it somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, but some people shoot for the moon, they miss it, and then they quit. So the idea is to pick a goal that you know is attainable and maybe just outside of your reach. Not too far, but just a little bit outside of your reach that you can aim for. And then once you get there, create another goal just beyond that. So taking your situation in steps. The other thing I always like to tell people as well, successful people do not create goals. Successful people create systems of change. Okay. So I'm not just saying, hey, I want to lose like 5 pounds by next month. What are the things that you need to do in order to lose that weight? So for me, I'm going, okay, first of all, what are the things that keep me from getting to the gym? Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm this. So I'm going to lay my clothes out the night before. I'm going to set a schedule and I'm going to create a system to help me get there. If you have children and it's difficult, then you're going, okay, when are my children waking up? When are they doing this? So that I can then create a system of change. But simply creating a goal does not help you get there. So I always say, if you ever want to know how it's done, look at a successful person and you'll notice they have more than just a goal. They've created a whole system to help them move to the next, to the next milestone. Because let's be honest, every single last person on this call right now has something that is going to get in the way of their wellness. It's either your children, your job, you're this or you're that. The only way to navigate through that is to create some type of system to help you move forward.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because, I think that's it's kind of like higher level content, getting people to understand that, people that are successful at stuff have systems. They just don't have goals they're trying to hit. They got a system that is designed to help them arrive at that particular goal. And I think you're reaching about that because we can not only apply that to fitness, but just your overall wellness of your life. And how do I make sure I create a system to make sure I hit that? Now, the second obstacle is going to be the portion size. So how do we look to kind of overcome that particular issue?
Well, the first thing is to listen to your hunger. Slow down and listen to your hunger. Your body, as with everything else, is going to tell you exactly when it's done. But the problem is that a lot of us eat too fast. So slow down your eating, eat a little bit slower. And then when you get to that point of fullness, you know that you've eaten enough. Or, if you really have to count something, I tell people use your hand. If you're a woman, just use that palm size when it comes to your protein, a little cup when you're using your carbs and so forth. So that is another backup way that you can do it. But for the most part, just listen to your hunger. Some of us, we sit at the table and it's just like we just throw the food back so fast to the point where we've now eaten a 16-ounce steak, when in reality, we could have eaten a 6-ounce and we would have been full had we eaten it slower, had we taken our time, had we thought about it. So some people I tell, chew your food and count it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, get yourself about 20 bites and then check in with yourself. Am I still hungry? And if the answer is no, stop eating. It's okay to leave food on your plate. Or what I've done when I go to restaurants is I have them immediately cut it in half and immediately box it. And I say, don't even put it on a plate. Put it in a box, bring it to my table. I'm going to take it home, and then I'm only going to eat what's on this plate. So those are some ways to really do portion control, because I can guarantee you 99.9% of the restaurants you eat at are over serving you unless you specifically order it at the right portion size.
Okay, so let me ask you a follow-up question that, because this is something I've experienced. So a lot of us coming out of like the workspace, we get a really compressed amount of time to eat.
Yes.
And then what it kind of does is kind of trains us to eat fast. And something I've noticed, even though I work from home, I still would find myself eating fast, sometimes getting indigestion. I also heard that your food really doesn't absorb well because of the way in which you ate. Are there any strategies you can kind of give us to try to relax, to make sure that when we eat, we actually chew our food properly and give ourselves time to have the food digest?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a more complicated situation, because I'm going to say something that I think a lot of people don't agree with, but I'm going to say it anyways. We are responsible for our time. And I think that we have allowed jobs, that we work for to dictate what we've done. And I think that as I've progressed in my career, I finally have started to say, I'm going to protect my time. I know you said I have 30 minutes. However, I'm going to take a little bit more time. And I do take my time, and I do tell bosses now, like, hey, I need this space and I need that. I feel like if you never ever push back, you never ever say anything, then that becomes the norm. And that's what your boss is going to start saying. If they feel like you can get it done in 30 minutes, guess what? That will always be the norm. Now, I know that's easier said than done. Some of us have inflexible jobs, inflexible bosses. I'm sorry, for you all, but I have learned over times to negotiate for my own personal needs and understanding that I am responsible for my own space and time. Now, with that being said, for those of you who don't have that flexibility and just absolutely can't get past that, one of the things that you can do is keep your food at your desk. Particularly when I was in bodybuilding, and I always used to carry my food with me. I don't really do it today, but back then I'd keep a little thing of food in my purse. And I would just nibble on my food all throughout the morning. It didn't have to be just at lunchtime. So that's sort of how I got my food in a very slow manner. I'd eat a little bit in between conference calls, a little bit there, a little bit here, and it just kind of spread throughout the day. And like I said, keeping up with the chewing. So if you're at lunch, just counting through your chews. Eventually it'll become a habit. But in the beginning, you have to consciously do it. So that's a whole nother podcast, is just talking about habit formation. So anytime you do something for the first time, you have to consciously do it until it eventually becomes a habit. So to summarize that point up, I would simply say, take your time by counting the actual times that you chew. If you can, spread your food throughout the day. Take your food to work. Keep it with you at all times. And once you make that a habit, it becomes easier to slow down.
Okay. And then the next one we're going to talk about, and something's big, is that how do we kind of overcome the obstacle of outworking, or is it, let me make sure I got it, outworking a bad diet?
Right.
Yeah.
I would just simply tell people this. You can't outwork that bad diet. Give yourself 7 days just to eat clean, so that you can see the difference. When you get on that scale and you see the clear difference of what happens when you have 5 or 6 solid days, you can then understand that, wow, that makes a huge difference. And I'll just give you something that I've done with some of my clients. I usually always like them to do a detox the very first week that we work together. And, they lose a lot of weight during that detox. And when I say detox, I'm not talking about flat tummy teas or any kind of special drinks or anything. I'm just talking about good, healthy food. That is how I detox, with vegetables, clean meats, and so forth. So I have them do that for 7 days. And then they lose a lot of weight. And then they go back to eating the other things. And I'm like, now you can compare. You have something to compare. And you can see that no matter what you do, you're not going to outwork that bad diet. Sure, you might lose a pound here or there, but you're not going to have those significant losses that you thought you were going to have. Furthermore, when you start to work out a lot, your body requires more food. So you're actually going to be more hungry. You're going to want to eat more food. So that puts you in a position where you might end up eating more junk food if you have not already made the switch to a healthier lifestyle.
Okay. And the next one is going to be calorie counting. So how do we overcome that particular obstacle?
Calorie counting. First, I tell people, focus on the quality of your food. Rather than counting your calories, look at your plate and say, what is the quality of the food that I have on my plate right now? So is it full of veggies? Is it full of slow digesting carbs? Things that are going to keep me fuller for longer. If you focus on those high quality foods, you will find that you get better results over time. So what I tell people is learn your portions. For the very first couple of, I would say, weeks that you get on a diet plan, keep a food journal, because that food journal is really going to give you a good idea of what you should be even eating until it becomes automatic. So like me, I look at a plate now. I've been doing this for so long that I can look at a plate and I know exactly how many calories are on there because I've gotten accustomed to building my plates. And so what I tell folks is just get a plate. Say, do I have my carbs on there? Do I have my protein on there? Do I have my veggies on there? And so forth. And like 1 thumb's worth of nice, healthy fat, and focus on the high quality items. Now, I know that's easier said than done, because if you've never eaten healthy ever before in your life, you're not going to know what a high quality good fat is. You're not going to know what a slow digesting carb is. So those are the things that you also should research before you get into that, so you know how to build your plate. But that is how you shift from, I think, calorie counting to quality. So instead of the number, look for the quality of the food that you're about to partake in.
Okay. And to follow up with that, are you, and I've seen this from, like, I follow a lot of fitness people on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a proponent of people weighing their food?
I think it depends on what you're trying to do. So
Okay.
like when I was in bodybuilding, yes, I weighed my food down
Okay.
to the T because
Okay.
I had to. But if you're just sort of just wanting to learn, just have a healthier lifestyle and just, middle of the road, then no, you don't need to weigh it. However, maybe that first week that you're doing this, it doesn't hurt to do it so you can know what appropriate portion sizes are. So I often tell people, keep that food log, maybe weigh for about 7 days, just so you can get a good understanding of what does 4 ounces look like. All right. So I know that the palm size of my hand is about 4 to 5 ounces. I know that. But you're not going to know that until you do it. So it doesn't hurt to do it for about 1 to 2 weeks, maybe. And then after that, you should have a good idea of what 4 to 5 ounces looks like. You should know what a good portion size looks like, and then you'll never have to do it again. So yes and no. Yes, I'm a proponent of learning your portions, but once you learn them, do you have to do it every day? No, I don't think a lot of people have. The average person doesn't have time to weigh everything every single day. And it might deter you from sticking to your plan if you feel like you don't have time.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, and I know you have a lot of experience in this space. So can you tell our audience anything that you may know about weight loss that the average person may not be aware of?
So I would say some of the things that I would say are misconceptions about weight loss is that people think that you just cut calories and then that's it. But I want you to think of your food as fuel, okay? It works just like a car. If you don't put any gas in your car, the car is not going anywhere. So you cannot cut your calories so low. If you cut them too low, you might actually see a reversal. You might actually start seeing yourself gain weight if you do it for too long. So it's about eating the appropriate amount of food to help you hit your goals. The other thing is water. I find a lot of people just don't drink enough water, or we're attempting to get our water from other sources that actually drain us of water. So if you drink a lot of coffee, you're going to go to the restroom a lot. So all that water you just ingested is going right out of your body. Or we're eating foods that don't have a lot of water in it. So if you eat a lot of veggies, cucumbers, things like that, those things have water in them, and it will contribute to your water total. So these are really the biggies. When I see people plateau and they can't get past that point, the very first thing I ask them is, how many calories are you eating and how much water are you drinking? And then the biggie, and I almost forgot, is sleep. Sleep is the number one thing that people don't get enough of, that highly influences your ability to lose weight. Because when you don't get enough sleep, your body creates cortisol and other stress hormones, which work contrary to everything else that you're working on. So you can eat a good diet, you can go to the gym, but if those stress levels are through the roof, you're going to have a problem with losing weight. So sleep is a biggie. And like I said, I know a lot of people struggle with getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but if you can get that sleep in, you'll notice that it'll change a good portion of your weight loss journey.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, because I've always considered myself a night owl myself.
Yes.
So I'm often up late at night. So, and I'm often up because sometimes it's just a mindset thing where I feel like, okay, I haven't done enough work today. So let me try to do some more work as the night goes on, and you look up, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Can you give any suggestions to make sure, because I know how important sleep is, but you kind of get into a habit where you've gone without maybe 8 hours of sleep. I sometimes now, if I'm lucky, I get 6.5. How do you try to increase your sleep or get better quality sleep? Because there's a whole science and a whole study around it, but it can just be difficult because, like I said, is that when you're really motivated, you always feel like at the end of the day, I haven't done enough work. So you try to do an extra hour or 2 of work at night, and then you end up losing the sleep.
Absolutely. And I think we're twins on that, because I think work is my love language, to be honest with you. I'm a type of person, I can work all day and all night. But you mentioned one thing in that line when you were talking about it. You said it's a habit.
Yeah.
And so doing the opposing action also, you have to go through the same process of making it a habit. So how you set up a habit is this. The very first move you have to do is you have to consciously make yourself go to bed at night. And once you've done that enough, eventually that conscious action becomes a habit. So what it might be is setting an alarm for yourself that says at 8 o'clock, I'm going to start my wind down process, which means if the goal is to go to bed, like say 10 p.m., at 8 o'clock, it's time to start winding down. We're going to turn off our electronics. We're going to start turning down the lights, because your melatonin is activated by the darkness. So if you've got all of these lights around and whatnot, you're actually preventing your body from going into that normal cycle of creating your melatonin and ushering you off to sleep. So 8 o'clock, set an alarm for yourself saying, I'm going to start turning off my electronics. I'm going to start winding down. Then, start actually doing those processes. Also, do not do things in your room that you don't associate with sleep. So I'm really bad about eating in my room, doing work in my room, and so forth. If you can do your work, particularly for those folks who work from home, if you can start doing your work in another room, so that when you walk into your room, your body associates that with sleep. But if you're doing your work in your room, if you're eating in your room, your body's like, this isn't the place where I go to sleep. This is the place where I'm lit all day, where I'm working, where I'm doing all of those things. So being able to take it elsewhere will also help you go to sleep at night. If you've got the, what's it called? Blue screen, are the blue light blockers that you can put on your computers, on your cell phones, and so forth. That will also help with helping your body to turn down at night. And then I like to do relaxing things in the evening because I've had a very hard time becoming a morning person. I'm still not a morning person, but I like to take Epsom salt soaks in the afternoon, go to the sauna if I can, if I have time. Things that help my body to really turn down. Reading. So instead of reading on your computer, read a physical book. Things like that will help you wind down in the afternoon so that you can actually start going to bed. Now, is it going to happen overnight? Probably not, because like me and you, we've been doing this for years. We're go-getters, where we entrepreneurial life and so forth. So that's not something that's just going to happen like that. So what I do is I keep a habit tracker. And then every time that I successfully do the thing that I've been intending to do, I give myself a tally because it's sort of it works as a reminder that you're setting up this new habit. So I've actually been in the middle of that this week. I'm trying to get to the gym at 5 a.m. I used to work at a gym at 5 a.m., but I haven't been able to get back to that in years because I'm like you. My brain works best at nighttime. That's when I get the best work done. But so far this week, I'm 4 days in. I've been getting up in the morning. And like I said, I just give myself that tally mark every day just to prove to myself that you absolutely can be a morning person. You might be grouchy, but you can. And I actually have been getting more work done now that I've been getting up at 5 a.m. So it's a process, but there are some little things you can do to get better, not only better sleep, because you can sleep 8 hours. If it's not high quality sleep, then, it's not good. But those are some things that you can do.
Okay, so let me follow up and what you were talking about was really important because when I used to work in healthcare, and back in the day, I used to drink a lot of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, I found out that coffee has like caffeine has like a 9-hour half-life. So then what I would do is I would be drinking coffee at work at like 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, get off at 11:30 and couldn't go to sleep.
Yes.
And so I finally was able to go to a doctor because I literally would be up to like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And he told me in your bed, and he says, when you get in your bed, he said, the only thing you should do is have sex and go to sleep. He says, you shouldn't read because I grew up reading in the bed. So I would read in the bed, read magazines. He said, you shouldn't do that. And so I had to reprogram myself to where when I get in the bed, and I do sometimes now look at my phone, but just use my bed just for those two things because I grew up literally with the flashlight, with the lights off, reading in the bed. And then you're up instead of going to sleep, you're up reading in the bed. And then what it does is it makes it to where you don't see the bed as someplace that you go to sleep.
Yes.
But what I wanted to ask you as a follow-up, and we're kind of going off the deep end, but I wanted to ask you, you got some people that kind of work in fitness that believe that based on how human beings evolved from a hormonal standpoint, we should try to go to sleep as soon as the sun goes down and then wake up as soon as the sun goes up. Now, I know for everybody that's going to be different, but do you think for some people that would be the best situation for them?
No.
Okay.
I think I'm thinking about how short that day is about to be. Only because, and I say that only because, to a certain extent, there are a lot of different theories out there in the fitness world. There are 5 million diets, 5 million different ways of doing that. I think that you have to be able to cut through the noise and to create a plan that works for you.
Okay.
Can I realistically go to sleep the minute it gets dark outside, 7, 8 o'clock at night? No, there are just too many things I have to do. And I can't imagine if I had kids going to sleep when the lights go down. I just don't think I could. Now, if you don't have a busy life and you can absolutely go to bed at 7, 8 and then get up when the lights come on, I say go for it. You're going to get some high quality, good sleep. But I think for the vast majority of us, that's just not attainable. And it kind of goes back to that goal of before. Are you setting yourself realistic goals, things that you absolutely know you can do? Because if you create a goal that you absolutely can never hit, you're going to give up. And then you're actually going to go in the opposite direction. So to answer your question, if you can do it, do it. But if you can't, don't beat yourself up about it. Just aim for 7 to 8 quality hours of sleep.
Okay.
Or even 6,
Around 6?
Yeah, I would say 6 to 8.
Okay.
But the high quality is more important than the length.
Okay. Now let me ask you, and kind of jumping around the questions.
Oh,
so let's say we got a person that is, really busy, got the family work, the whole 9 yards. How can they structure their fitness activity around their work family schedule?
Absolutely. So I would say the first thing you need to do, put everything out there. I'm a big writer. I like to have a planner, not on my phone, but a written out plan where I go, where are the biggest obstacles in my day? So if you know you're going to spend the vast majority of time with your kids in the afternoon, then you might need to flip your schedule around. You might need to go, okay, I know I got to get the kids after school. I got to take them to practice and so forth. So maybe I'm going to do my workout first thing in the morning. And in fact, I don't have children. However, I found it was easier to do my workouts first thing in the morning because what would happen is at that time when I started this, I had a crazy busy job, like a 24/7 type of job. And I knew that if anything happened during the day, and if I didn't get that workout done first thing in the morning, it was never going to get done in the afternoon. All right. Now, Granted, that's me working the plan that works for me. So I always tell folks, look at your entire day, lay it all out, write down when you're going to have the biggest obstacles, when do you have moments of free time. And what I actually ended up settling on years later was that my lunchtime was actually the best time for me to go work out. First, I started in the morning, but then lunchtime became just such this wonderful space because it gave me an excuse to leave the office, to get out of the office away from my bosses, who at the time I couldn't stand my boss, the people I was working for at that time. So it gave me an opportunity to get out of the office. It broke up my day. And I thought to myself, I'll always work at lunch. Then I got a new job, worked elsewhere. And I was like, you know what? Lunch is no longer the best time. Then it became the morning. So you really got to lay your day out there. Find out where you have the gaps at. Find out what works best for you. If you can't get to the gym, is it better to work out from home? Do you have a gym at the workplace? Some people have gyms, in their offices. What does your fitness look like to you? Because for some folks, it just may be walking. I used to work with a guy. He was about 70 years old, the most in shape person I've ever met in my life. And every day in the office, he had a routine that he walked around the whole building, and he always had food with him. That was before I actually got in shape, but he had food with him and he walked around the office every single day. And that was his routine. The most ripped 70-year-old man you'd ever see.
I feel you. Okay. And so let me ask you a question, because this is something that a lot of people deal with, and I've also deal with it, but a lot of my conditions are different. So for me, I have a schedule in which I work out.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be times in which I'm tired. But because of the way I've been conditioned as an athlete, if I can get to the workout and start getting into it, I'm almost, and I don't want to compare myself to an animal, but I'm almost like a horse. Once I break a sweat and get warmed up, I will just do the workout. It's almost like I've been conditioned to do that, because I just see the workout like practice.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people struggle with, I may have had a long day at work, or I maybe didn't sleep that well, or maybe I'm just stressed, but my workout is scheduled and then I skip it. And then it starts to become a habit of skipping workouts. How can you give some suggestions to that person? Because I see that stopping a lot of people from hitting their progress.
Absolutely. So like you said, it becomes a habit. So what I try to do, particularly on those days when I'm not having a good day, there are days where I drive to the gym, even if I don't lift a single weight, and walk through the door.
Okay.
Because you're trying to remind your brain that this is the habit that I'm going to do. So it's going to happen to all of us. You're going to have a day here and there where it's a wash. But I don't sit at home. I still get in my car and I drive to the gym, even if I don't actually work out. So I've had plenty of days where I go in the gym and I just sit down. Or they have the little massage chairs at Planet Fitness. So I just go there and sit in the chair. But the thing is that I'm trying to remind myself that, yeah, you might have had to take a moment off, but you did not take the day off. So continue to foster that. The other thing that I like to do is I like to have what we call a safety net. So I will say my safety net is, and it's different for every single person. If I miss 2 days of working out, I will do X. For some people, it might mean I'm going to call a friend. For others, it means I might activate another activity, but always having sort of that safety net. Think of it sort of like the net that you see under a tightrope. What is your safety net? And like I said, it's different for everybody. You can have a very close friend that you say, if I miss 2 days of workout, I'm going to call you so that you can remind me to get back out there. For me, I don't like to rely on other people. So I often will say, if you miss 2 days of lifting weight, at least on the third day, you're going to go for a walk. You're going to do something, even if it's something easier, but you're not going to let it persist past 2 days. And you can set reminders for yourself in the phone, call that friend, call whomever, but have that safety net. So those are ways that I keep myself on track so that I don't fall off the wagon. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all and pretend like I've never fallen off the wagon. I have. I most certainly have, but I also know how to get back into my habits. So,
yeah. And I think that's really important, because one thing about me is that if I know that I just don't feel like lifting, I will go and just do like cardio, like either just do the bike or walk or do something cardio related, just so I get something in, as opposed to not getting anything. Because one thing about, working from home, you spend a lot of time sitting, you're not doing a lot of movement, and that's really not good for you. So I try to make sure I get in and do something. And then also, now that the weather's getting a little bit nicer, you can take walks outside and just get some fresh air, but also at the same time, get some exercise. I just think really important to just get some kind of activity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to your point, sometimes you just got to do something, anything, even if it's not full 100%, the idea that you did something is going to help you continuing to push forward.
Yes, ma'am. Now we're going to talk about something that a lot of people deal with, and
Mhm.
I talked about this in a video I probably did about 2 weeks ago. Food cravings.
Yes.
And do you have any suggestions on how people can deal with those food cravings?
Certainly. So there are a number of ways. First thing, as I told you before, your body is a warning system. It has all types of different warning systems. Now, I'm not saying all cravings are a sign of deficiency, but sometimes they are. So if you're craving certain things, it could be a deficiency in, magnesium and this vitamin and that vitamin. So always pay attention when you have excessive cravings because they can be a sign of deficiency. The other thing that they can be a sign of is that you simply have not eaten enough or you waited too long to eat. So I see some folks who will go the whole day without eating and then they get these massive uncontrollable cravings. And that's because your body actually releases hormones to force you to eat. Like your body doesn't want to die. So it will release hormones all throughout the day to make you do things. So when you're having cravings and you're having these things happening, your body is actually super smart. It's doing whatever it takes to survive. So if you go a really long time throughout the day, your body will start to release hormones to force you to eat because it's telling you you should have fed me 4, 5, 6, 7 hours ago. So if that is the case, try to eat little bits all throughout the day to prevent yourself from having these massive cravings at the end of the day. The other thing, if it's a deficiency, which we won't know unless you run, go to the doctor and run panels, but if you are having deficiencies in those areas, try to, go see your doctor, get those deficiencies corrected to see if your cravings subside. And usually if it is being driven by some type of deficiency, you'll find that your cravings do subside after that. And then this is the biggie for me. When you detox yourself of sugar, sugar makes me crave everything. So when I was into bodybuilding, I rarely ate any sugar, but if I gave myself one little cheat of sugar, I would then go eat a whole steakhouse because for whatever reason, that sugar just, it made me want to eat everything. So I will say this, whenever I am detoxed of sugar, I rarely have cravings. My cravings typically come, from that. There may be some folks who disagree with me on that point, but that is from my own personal experience that sugar makes me crave things. And then also switching your carbs out from fast digesting carbs to slow digesting carbs, things that are going to be a nice, slow, even burn throughout the day. So instead of rice, maybe you're going to eat a sweet potato, things like that. Things that are going to be a nice, even burn throughout the day so that you don't get hungry again. So those are the top 3 things that I think drive cravings.
Okay, and then going back to that sugar,
Mhm.
and I had kind of talked about that. Why do we think people have so much or have so many challenges getting that sugar out of their diet? And then also, what extreme do we go? Because I'm at the point now
Yeah.
where I'm asking myself, should I even eat fruit? Should I
Mhm.
just cut it all out? Then what do I eat? Because the question is, as an athlete, you're trying to figure out how can I just get more performance?
Right,
So do I
right.
get better performance by cutting out any, I already don't eat white sugar. I don't
Mhm.
eat sweets. I haven't eaten sweets in like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 to almost 20 years
Right.
now. Now should I cut fruit out of my diet? Then do I get any sugars outside of what my body turns into sugar?
Yeah.
So how do we deal with the sugar issue? And then what extreme do you think we should go to?
Yeah, so I think part of the sugar issue is, again, the Western diet.
You know,
We pack sugar into everything, and so much of our food is processed. If you simply shift from processed foods to more naturally occurring foods, you're going to get rid of a lot of the sugar just right then and there. And I don't really have a problem with eating fruit because it's like naturally occurring sugars when you're talking about fruit. The only time I would tell people to maybe be mindful of it if you're on an all fruit diet, which I've actually seen some folks like that. They don't eat anything but
yeah, yeah.
fruits are all they do is juice all day long. If you're at that point, then yeah, you might want to check the amount of fruit intake that you have. But if you're just eating an occasional fruit here and there, I think fruits are good for you. You do have to look at the processed fat because unfortunately we live in GMO world where everything is made with GMOs. So if you're eating a lot of fruits that are not organic and they're GMOs, you might be getting just a lot of chemicals in you. So that would be the only thing I would say be mindful with fruit. But outside of that, yeah, I'm cool with having fruit. Now, obviously, when I was bodybuilding, I didn't eat a ton of fruit. I was eating a very, very chicken, and chicken breasts and rice and sweet potatoes. Like I was eating the same thing all the time. But outside of that, I think that how you deal with it is just moving from processed to just good natural foods, veggies, meats. If you like meat, if you don't eat meat, then obviously eating something outside of processed food. But once you change from processed, it eliminates a lot of the sugar, I would say. And then also be mindful of the type of sugar, because unfortunately, when people go on wellness journeys, the very first thing they want to do is they want to get on things like Splenda, aspartame, all of those low calorie. And I can't say this enough. A traditional doctor might say otherwise, but I fully believe that those types of sugars have a negative impact on your microbiome, and your microbiome runs everything. They call it the second brain, and it has such a significant impact on your body. And once you mess up your gut, and I've done that, once you mess up your gut, you have all kinds of issues with your body. So if you can stay away from those, I'd almost rather you have regular sugar than to have a low calorie sweetener. Or if you can get your hands on monk fruit at a decent price. Monk fruit, though, is crazy expensive these days. That would be the better option.
Okay. Let me ask you a question I just came up with impromptu. So we live in an era, and once you live past a certain amount of years, you start to see like every diet in the world come out. So I remember, like, I'm old enough to remember when the Atkins was like the biggest diet in the world. Then you got the South Beach, with every diet now they turned to keto, intermittent fasting. It's not really a diet, but it's fasting. You got the low carb diet, and everything goes to an extreme. How does a person that's trying to, optimize their wellness, optimize their weight loss, how do they manage all these different diets? And then if they fail at one, they're now being told, well, you should try this one. Yes. If you fail at that one, you should try this one. And so they just end up on these cycle of just constant diets, but none of them which they have success with.
Absolutely. I always tell my clients this: the best diet is the one that you can stick to. Okay. So it does not make a lick of sense to be keto if you like bread a whole lot. You're not going to make it. However, I know some people who do keto and have wonderful results because it's not a big part of their lifestyle. So the very first thing is to check your lifestyle and what you are willing to do and give up. The next thing I tell folks is you really don't have to be on a specific diet. If you can just transition from processed foods to all natural foods, that's half the battle right there. Now, if you really want to be part of a system and you really want to try things out, go for it. But always put your personality at the center of it. Again, if you know that you cannot part with carbs, then do not pick keto. Same thing with Mediterranean diet. If you don't live in an area where some of these things are even accessible, don't try to do it, because what's going to happen is you're going to try to do it. You're not going to succeed. And then you're going to say, this isn't for me. And this is why I couldn't make it. So, for me, I've done all of them. I've tried all of them. And where I am these days is just saying, what is the quality of the food on my plate? Is it of high quality? If the answer is yes, I'm good with it. And that's how I go. Same can be said for vegan and vegetarian. Be prepared, because I know a lot of vegans and vegetarians who are not in shape, who are not any of those things. And there's sort of been this misconception that if I just do this, then it's all going to fall off. They watch Beyonce. They watched all of these famous people do it. And then they think, but there's a way to do it. So if you're not going to do it the right way, guess what? Don't do it at all. It's what I tell folks. If you cannot commit to what it really takes to be those things, don't do them at all.
Okay. And then what are some of the things that you can suggest that we can do to achieve optimal wellness?
Optimal wellness. So again, it starts with moving from processed to whole foods. If you can't pronounce the name on the back of that label, it's processed. So I would say only eat things that you know where they came from. If you know that apple came out of the orchid or out of the ground or so forth, feel free to eat that. But if you don't know where it came from, then let's refrain from eating those things. The other thing, so I would say, so that was point number one, eating things that you know you can pronounce. 2, sleep. Sleep is at the center of everything. It's the one thing that I feel like I have not spent enough time exploring. So sleep. Work-life balance. You are in charge of your work-life balance. we give our employers far too much credit for that. And it's something that unfortunately I learned later in life, that take your vacations. If you have sick days, do you know how many years that I did not take sick days? Because I thought you had to be like on your deathbed to take a sick day, until I had a boss who said, "Why are you leaving the year with 13 sick days still on the calendar?" And I thought, well, I haven't been sick. He said, take them anyways. So being sure that you create a very clear line on your work-life balance, what you will and won't do, get out and enjoy life. And I don't know, I might be privileged when I say that. I know there are some people who just absolutely don't have that privilege, but if you do and you can take it, go ahead and take it. So let's see, sleep, food, work-life balance, and just try to get some movement every day. We tend to think that, hey, I got to go to the gym, I got to do this hard workout. No, if you can just get up and move, any type of movement, just do it. Now, personally, I got to be in the gym, I got to lift some weights. But if you could just wake up every day, as I told you the story about the guy earlier, I knew a guy, all he did was walk around the office every single day. So try not to sit down all day, get up at some point, walk around the block, walk around your office space, do some steps, whatever it takes. Just try to get at least 30 minutes of some type of movement every single day. So I would say those are my biggies for wellness right there.
Okay. And so we appreciate that. So now we're going to ask you something that is a kind of relevant question. And we have talked about it before. And we know that you come out of the bodybuilding space.
Yes.
And what we've seen over the past, let's say, few months, even though this thing has happened before, is we've seen a lot of bodybuilders, unfortunately, lose their life as bodybuilders. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say every situation was correlated to bodybuilding, but we do see a lot of bodybuilders and what we believe is dying prematurely.
Yes.
Do you have any perspective on that and why we maybe think some of these things are taking place?
I would say a lot of it has to do with the will to want to win.
Okay.
You know, anytime you meet a person who wants to win at something, and it doesn't even have to be in wellness. We see it in the financial realm. We see it in wellness. We see it everywhere. When people want to win bad enough, they'll do whatever it takes to win. And sometimes that means cutting corners, not taking care of yourself, not doing the things that are required for wellness. And then personally, when I was in bodybuilding, I never took myself to those extremes because for me, I wasn't trying to win first place. But I do know folks who will partake in performance enhancing drugs and will take them to such an extreme that it outpaces what their body can do. You know, there's some folks who've mastered doing it safely, but for the most part, a lot of people are just out here taking way too much of it or pushing their bodies to certain extremes, like trying to get the water weight off before a show, diuretics and so forth. So it's not just performance enhancing drugs. Sometimes it's diuretics, sometimes it's working too much, because if you work out too much, you also create cortisol and all of those things. So I think that's why you're seeing an uptick in some of these things. And then also society is changing in the sense that we learn more about these things because we have social media, we have outlets that will report on your death within a minute of you dying.
Yeah.
So it's more easy to find out about those things. But do I believe people have always been, kind of dying of these things? Yeah. But again, we're sort of in these extremes where now you have companies that can create all different types of medications. We don't really know how they affect us. And for most folks, they never take what they need. They always take way too much. So
when you were competing, you understood that maybe to, get to that elite level, it may involve some performance enhancing drugs, and it just wasn't something that you wanted to get involved in?
No, I've never wanted to get involved in it. But if there's any silver lining about what's happening today, because so many people, I would say, died in this past year, you're starting to see a resurgence of the Natty League, which is in those leagues, you actually have to take a drug test. You have to take a drug test in order to compete. So I'm actually looking forward to that. If it continues to go the way that it's looked and people are putting more money behind it, more shows behind it, I actually might get back into competing again because I can compete against people who are natural as well. So I'm actually really, really looking forward to it. And like I said, I actually saw a natural show in my area for the first time in, I think, ever. So we're actually seeing him being put on by real promoters and people who before were investing their time in, the regular bodybuilding. So So yeah, I've never wanted to do it. I actually got into bodybuilding because I needed something to help me lose weight. And for me, the idea, having been an athlete, the idea of losing weight with no trophy at the end was hard for me to grasp.
Yeah.
So I actually signed up for a bodybuilding competition before I ever lost the weight, and I just said, "You're signing up because you don't want to finish last place, and as long as you don't finish last place, you're good." I still finished last place, but I lost 40 pounds in the process. So I had to keep competing because I was like, I can't go down like that. I
Yeah, I
can't
feel
be
you.
last place. But I was never last place again, at least. But that's the only reason I signed up. I never signed up to win first place. I signed up because I needed something to aim for. And quite frankly, I don't have the knees for CrossFit. I thought about CrossFit. I said, that can't be my thing. I've had 2 surgically repaired knees. Can't do that. And I wasn't interested in doing a team sport, but the only thing left after that would have been, I guess, tennis. So I'm no Venus or Serena, so I went with bodybuilding.
Okay. If you ever get back into it, because they have so many like divisions now, would you do regular bodybuilding? Would you do fitness? Would you do bikini, figure? I know they got figure now.
Yes.
What division or what space you think you will go into?
So the last couple of competitions I did were figure, just because I naturally have broader shoulders. It's where my body more naturally fits in. But now they have the new wellness division, which it's a lot of Brazilians. It used to be big in Brazil. They finally brought it, I think, here to America in the past couple of years. And so I'm interested in that because it's made for women with bigger legs, who have more development in the lower regions. So I'd either do that or figure if I ever came back. I doubt I'll ever be a bikini girl again, just because my body's not built for that, for the bikini division. And I'm never going to be the bodybuilding level, because those are the really, really muscular ladies. And I'm just not willing to put that much muscle on. So.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so question from the audience is Miss Paula Clay.
Yes.
And she wants to know, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
I actually really love intermittent fasting. And I particularly like to do it as a detox. I do know some people who do it year round, but I like to have coffee in the morning. So usually I'll do it for like a week during a detox. And when I say detox, again, I'm not talking about flat tummy teas or anything like that. I'll just have a week where I do nothing but veggies and clean meat. And that's what I consider my detox. No sugar, no nothing. And then I'll do it with an intermittent fast. And I usually get really amazing results. The one thing I like to remind people on, people like to use intermittent fasting as an excuse not to eat enough. Yeah. And so even though you've restricted the number of hours you're eating, you still need to eat enough calories. So don't go do an intermittent fast and then only eating 500 calories a day. You still need to get those calories in, and make sure that you're doing intermittent fasting correctly. And then I also tell folks that there are a lot of different types of intermittent fasting. You know, some people do 16-8, which is the most popular format, meaning 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. Some people have done as much as 24 hours. I personally have never gone that long, but I do know some folks who are doing it. And then you also need to be mindful of being a man versus a woman. The female hormones are a lot more sensitive than those of the male gender. And so you'll find that your body pushes back a lot more than what your male counterparts will. So you kind of have to feel around. You might want to start off with a 12-12 and then graduate to a 16-8 to see how your body feels. But at the core of everything, I tell folks, if you don't feel good, discontinue it or go ahead and eat. You might have to gradually work your way up. It just sort of depends on the state of where your body is at the time that you do intermittent fast. But I know a lot of people who have gotten a lot of great results from doing intermittent fasting. Your body goes through autophagy, which is, your cells, those bad cells being cleaned out of your system and new ones being formed. I can tell you my skin looks amazing when I do intermittent fasting. So those are my thoughts on intermittent fasting.
Okay. And another question we have is from SB. He says, do you believe in meal prep for the week?
Oh, yes. I do it every week, actually. Every Saturday or Sunday, I cook for the entire week. And if I know I'm going to be short on time, what I do is I have the catering services of all my local restaurants, places that I like. You'll find that a lot of restaurants won't tell you that they have a catering menu. So I say ask. So when I used to be really busy, if I had a week where I didn't feel like cooking, I had this rotisserie place that was around the corner from my house. And I bought a whole pan of chicken for the week. I think it was like $40. I got a week's worth of chicken already cut up into little squares. And then I just put it in Ziploc bags in the freezer. And then every day I was ready to go. But I find that if I do not prep my food during the week, I'm going to eat out. And when I eat out, it's always a ribeye. And that's unfortunate. So I like to have my food on hand because I am less likely to veer off plan if it's already there. But again, I recognize that not everybody has time to cook. So when you don't have time to cook, go to the grocery store. A lot of times you can ask them to cook it for you. One little tip that I found out, I never realized that Whole Foods will cook your food for you. Okay. But once I figured that out, I actually took 3, 4, 5 pounds of all the food that I wanted straight to the bar. And then I would go there and pick it up. And then I think they charged me like a few dollars to cook it. And it was like the best kept secret. I don't know if they still do it because I've been cooking a lot for myself lately, but they used to. And I think a lot of other grocery stores probably do it as well, but you got to ask.
Okay, that's good to know because I didn't know that Whole Foods. So they cook the food that you buy from them, right?
Right. So I go to the grocery store, I pick out my food, and then they usually have a grill in the Whole Foods, and I would take it to the grill, and I think for a few dollars they would cook it all up, put it in a pan. Now usually they doing it like for small food. Yeah. So what I would do is I call it in advance and say, hey, can you cook me like 4 pounds of fish today? And they were like, what? I'm like, yeah, just cook me up 4. And then I'd go back and I'd pick it up at the concierge. But I believe a lot of grocery stores do that if you ask. The thing is that, and this is something that I learned from being in bodybuilding, ask all the questions. Because I used to have a million excuses about why I couldn't do this. And my coach told me, she said, Amber, who has to eat food hot? Why didn't you take it with you? And then I said, you know what? You right. And so that's when I started asking every restaurant questions, every grocery store question. And I found out and created my system so that I can get things done.
Okay. So we're going to make this the last question because I don't want to hold you too long.
Sure.
So what are your feelings about doing HIIT, which I think is high intensity interval training, instead of steady state cardio?
So there's a lot of science behind which is better. People who do cardio, steady state, are going to tell you, oh, no, it's the best. People who do HIIT will tell you the best. My personal beliefs are that you will burn fat for longer if you do HIIT. And I really love what's coming out of the hot work space where they do it in a sauna. I know that seems extreme, but I've been loving it. It's a workout that I most recently got into. But personally, I like HIIT for that reason. The other reason I like HIIT is because we don't all have 30, 40 minutes to do a workout. Sometimes all you got is 15 minutes. So the idea that we can get a nice, good, intense workout in 15 minutes and then I can go back to work is an amazing idea. So to answer your question, I do love HIIT workouts. I prefer them over steady state.
Okay. And so in closing, is there anything that you want to give to my audience in closing to make sure that they kind of get on the right track with their weight loss and their wellness?
I would say this. You can fix it now, or you can spend an exorbitant amount of money to fix it later. If you don't fix it now, it takes twice as much effort later on in life to try to correct these things. So when you have those little small aches and pains, don't ignore them. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'm just getting old. Because guess what? There are 80 and 90-year-old people out there who do not suffer from ailments. So when you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, and you start to see these little things, start paying attention, start saying, am I doing those 30 minutes a day? Those little things to help keep me on the straight and narrow. Because I'm going to tell y'all, I don't know about y'all, I do not like to spend my money at the doctor's office. So it'll put some more money in your pocket and it'll keep you going longer as you live.
Okay. So I want to tell everybody to make sure that you check Amber out at her website, which is FitFashow.com. She got a podcast getting ready to come up. It's going to be really, really good information. She's a really knowledgeable person in her space, and she has a lot of experience actually working with clients. So she has an understanding of how to kind of program you correctly to help you make sure you reach your goals. And she was able to speak to a lot of that today. So if you got any questions, just put them in the comments. We can answer them later. This is David W. Williams with Amber Ferchaurd.
Amber,
okay.
Yeah, Amber Fashow.
Amber Fashow. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
We'll talk to y'all later.